Welcome to Fundamentals for Startup, a CoMotion Labs production. My name is Sari Vimon-Chalao, CoMotion Labs Manager for the Hardware Incubator. CoMotion Labs is a multi-industry incubator program hosting early-stage startups and innovation from both inside and outside the UW community. We provide critical infrastructure and opportunities for learning, mentoring, and networking. If you are a founder looking for a community to help your startup grow and flourish, we would love to talk to you. Fundamentals for Startup is an open lecture series on topics related to entrepreneurship. Every week, we bring in experts to share insights, inspire action, and offer space for questions. All these talks are streamed and shared on our YouTube channel, and you can learn about upcoming events on our website. Just a reminder, please wait for the microphone before asking a question so our online audience can hear you. Today, I'm excited to introduce Matt Youngquist, President and Chief Coach at Career Horizons. In the second installment of our two-part series on LinkedIn hacks, Matt will focus on how to build a powerful profile for your startup. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Thanks to Claire and Hannah and the others who organized this. I am a graduate of this institution, and I remember Condon Hall was around when I got out 30 plus years ago. I just don't remember what it was. I know it wasn't this, though. I don't think CoMotion was here. So it kind of makes me nostalgic to come back. I am primarily a career coach. When I got out of school here, I fell into a field I knew nothing about, which was career training, job search training. And just given the time I got into this, that's right about when the internet hit. So a big part of my work over all these years has been studying all the tools that get invented, all the websites, the technologies that purport to help people network and advance their careers. And of everything I've seen, the thousands of tools in 30 years, there's no question LinkedIn is the most important one and most effective one. It's not perfect. It's got various things we could question. I know a lot of people, especially young people these days, really despise LinkedIn, but I'm here to kind of show just what an incredible tool it can be. So I've got about an hour's worth of material. I've left about 10 minutes at the end to take some questions, and I will say up front that I try to pack a lot of stuff in these talks, so all the slides I'm going to show you as we go back and forth between LinkedIn. I don't know how, but one way or another, CoMotion has that slide deck, so they can, you can take notes if you need to, but all the slides should be available to you. Okay, so it sounds like you had a good chat last week, or whenever it was, on some aspects of LinkedIn. I'm not sure analytics or what piece they were focused on. Most of what I'm going to talk about today is promoting yourself and using it to network effectively. It is tough with these talks today because there's so many different range of levels on LinkedIn. There's literally people I meet that have never been on there, don't even have an account, and then there's people who are pros, who have used it extensively. Just in this room, if you had to grade yourself kind of beginning, intermediate, advanced, is there anyone else like you're a power user and think, you'd use a ton of LinkedIn? A couple of you, okay? Is there anyone really new to it who hasn't had to use it much? Some more on the beginning side? A couple of you? Okay, and then rest in the middle. Yeah, so that's common, so I've kind of shot down the middle here and try to put some things together that wouldn't leave people in the dust, but also would make sure even the advanced users hopefully get something out of this. Okay. So for whatever it's worth, again, I could bore you all day with telling you all these tools that came and went, all these startup founders, oh, this is the next big tool for job hunting or whatever. It's just been incredible. But I was a very early adopter of LinkedIn. I think I was user 80,000 out of a billion that are on there now. So just for those who don't know, what really makes it so different than all the other tools and other social media sites is it's got over a billion people on it, but Facebook and other sites have that beat. The difference is these are professionals mostly, right? It's not kids, it's not retirees, it's people on here for business reasons, ostensibly looking to network. So it does have a real, targeted audience in over 200 countries where, that just for those of you looking to use it for business purposes, it just makes a lot more sense. The amount of stuff it lets you do for free to access data on people and companies is pretty mind-boggling in today's capitalistic world. Now, yeah, there's some benefits. More advanced paid subscriptions can get you if you're a high-volume salesperson or recruiter. But everything I'm going to show you today is free. Free stuff free users can do. And the majority of clients I work with, job hunters and such, again, they always ask me, should I get a paid account? And I don't begrudge LinkedIn some money, but most of the stuff you need to do on there, you don't need a paid account. Okay, but the single most defining characteristic, as hopefully most you know, is this whole thing about degrees, right? So when you look on LinkedIn, as we're going to see, anyone you see on there is going to have a number after their name, first, second, or third. And if they don't have a number, it means they're even beyond third. Okay, so just in case anyone is not familiar with this, I mean, you really can't get much mileage out of LinkedIn without understanding this concept. The whole point of it was the founders said, guess what? People have always liked to do business with people they know and they trust and they have a relationship with. But up until 2004, we were all limited to, well, who are the couple hundred people I know, right? I got a couple hundred friends or whatever. But LinkedIn said, let's take this 50-year-old principle called the 6 degrees of separation, as some of you may have heard of that says people on Earth, what this principle says is everyone is much more connected than we realize. And they said any two people on Earth, there is no more than 6 people between them. If you could map out how everyone knows each other. So LinkedIn jumped on that and said, well, you go on there, you find your friends, you connect with them, and as most of you know, that's your first degree, one link away from you. The magic is when you get to the friends of friends, second degree, and friends of friends of friends, third degree, where there's not quite as much trust with a third degree because there's a few people in between. But the second degree, that's the lifeblood. Because you may know 500 people on a first degree basis, but exponentially, those people probably know 100,000 other people that they could introduce you to. So the whole point of this, I think, if someone doesn't get that or understand the degrees, and I meet a lot of people on LinkedIn who don't really get that, that's the unique selling proposition of this site, or the value that they came up with, is just how can we amplify our networks beyond just the people we already know. And I'm going to show you lots of examples of that, okay? I also stress to people, I love social media, but I'm not in love with it. Meaning there's a lot of coaches, counselors, people that just can't stop telling you got to be posting on social media and all these sites. And some of you probably are much more into social media in general. To me, LinkedIn is a tool. If you can't do something useful with it or practical, I don't spend a lot of time on it otherwise. So to me, the 3 things to get the most out of this tool is you first got to ask yourself, who do you hope is going to find you on here? So I don't know all of your situations, but I would imagine there's certain audiences, I'm looking for investors, or I'm hoping recruiters will find me, or strategic partners. But you got to ask yourself, of all the people running around, what kinds of people are you trying to attract on there? Okay? That's question number 1. Okay, you then ask proactively, what kind of people are you looking to find and reach out to and meet? Which could be the same answer as number 1, or it could be different. So again, I would be shocked if any business owner or startup founder or job hunter can't articulate, and I kind of say even before LinkedIn was invented, if I was the mayor of Seattle and I knew a lot of people, I'd say, well, I'd love to help you. Who do you want to meet? And if you can't answer that question, I probably can't help you. So with my job hunters, for example, they struggle with that sometimes, and sometimes they'll say, well, you're looking for a job, right? Yes. What would the title of your next boss likely be? In other words, who would most likely have the problem you could solve? And then the light bulb goes on, oh, I'm an accountant, so shouldn't I look for controllers or directors of accounting? And I go, exactly. So let's use LinkedIn to find a ton of them around town, and better yet, find that warm referral pathway so that you're not a stranger. Someone is making that intro for you. And then the third key thing, there's hundreds of things you could use LinkedIn for, but I think the third key thing is, are there certain kinds of companies you're also trying to find? Strategic partners, investors, whatever that might be, tech transfer situations, but if you can define any sort of company you're looking for, that's another really good usage of the tool. So most of what I'm going to share is hopefully some advanced stuff about how to do each of those things. But is it safe to say some of those questions are resonating with you, or whatever you're doing, you already are formulating some answers to this? Right? Okay, good. Okay, so the first of the third key things we're going to talk about is getting people to find you, building a profile that's very findable. And again, with 1 billion people on there, you know, it's kind of hard to stand out. And a lot of people I work with say, I never get any hits on LinkedIn, and my buddy gets 17 a week. And there's something to be said for that. So what we're talking about here, as I suspect most of you know, the LinkedIn profile, that's your online resume, so to speak, right? There's the page. I think you're mostly familiar with it. But if I jump to LinkedIn and the shortcut is on the first page, you click your name, and that just takes you to your edit profile page that has all the kinds of information you can put about yourself. But where I see there's a lot of times a misunderstanding is that profiles are different than resumes. They have some pretty important differences. So a lot of my clients, oh, I'm on LinkedIn, I put my stuff on there, and I look at it and go, yeah, but that's just your resume stuff, and that's better than nothing. But what it's not doing is targeting your information to LinkedIn's algorithm. Okay, and I would guess, knowing this room, most of you know what SEO is. Who can tell? What's SEO?
Search engine optimization.
Which is what for the average common?
Making sure that you're using words that are going to show up in Google or other online engines.
Right. So companies, you know, as you all are, you know, SEO is big business. How do I get my company to show up high in Google if someone looks? Well, we're doing the same thing with people. Out of 1 billion people, how do we get you to pop out from all these other people who do what you do? So I would argue, we're going to go into some specifics, but I've said for 20 years, I have said so much of the info out there about this, to me, overcomplicates it. There are 2 overarching rules to getting found on LinkedIn. The first one is, as simple as it sounds, you got to study keywords and say, what are all the relevant keywords in my space or in my field or whatever my startup does? Okay, so if I'm a product manager, I've got to get all the words that relate to product management. If I'm a salesperson, I've got to get those. But I'll tell you, 98% of people, roughly, don't do that either on LinkedIn or their resume. And there's 3, I would say, 3 common reasons people miss lots of keywords. Any guesses why? Oh, we need mics on for this? Sorry. You volunteer, you get the decision.
Because they overcomplicate it and use too many words instead of boiling it down and being simple.
So that might be, possibly they put phrases in that aren't the actual keyword. Oh, I do product choreography and something versus just getting to the point and saying innovation. That could be a reason. That's not what I think is the most common reason. Anyone else think of anything? Okay. So watch what happens when I go here to just LinkedIn, and if I acted like a recruiter or a company or something, and I put in a search, let's just stick with product manager. So I'm looking to hire, whoops, got to type it right. So I'm looking to hire a product manager. Okay, so I run a search and it tells me in the whole country there are no fewer than, it's going to be a lot of them, okay, 2.6 million product managers. Now I can narrow it down to Seattle, whatever. Any of you who have any background in product management, tell me a skill or competency that 100% of those people should have. What's a very basic part of product management? If you're allowed to shout it out without the microphone. Is there anyone with product management background? Yeah.
Making roadmaps?
You want to? Okay. Yeah. Roadmaps, product roadmaps. So yeah, I would say 99% of product managers have built roadmaps, know about roadmaps. That's one of the core things in there. So watch what happens when I take 2.6 million people and simply add the word roadmap. And all I'm saying is, there anywhere on their profile they said that word. 2.6 million drops to 324,000. So whoever's better at math, that's what, 10% of them or 15%? We wiped out 85% of people, didn't have one of the most obvious words we could think of. Okay? Just think if I got more picky like most, I also want someone who's done life cycle management. That's another very common product management thing. That, if I add that, we go from 300,000 down to 78,000. So I just wiped out another 80%. And gosh forbid I'm looking for something even more specific like, I want someone who's also worked with SaaS technology or something. And that's how picky companies get. So with 3 fairly obvious keywords, I'm less than 1% of all the product managers on here. So if this audience is the rare one that all of you have the right keywords, I will be shocked, because typically, as I'm showing, in any field when I do a search, I point this out, and this is back to my riddle. So why do you think 2.5 million people didn't say those words. Any other guesses? The most common reason is they take it for granted. Oh, I do it every day. I can't see it. Of course I am a salesperson. Of course I do territory management and deal closing and prospecting. Go, but you didn't say that, so you're not findable. So as basic as that is, you got to get back in touch with what are all the common keywords. AI is a great use for this. If you go to any AI tool and say top 100 keywords in whatever you do, it'll just go bang, bang, bang and tell you all these keywords. So it's a very simple thing, but as I just showed, 99% of people really aren't in the game because they haven't put the words in. The only other two sometimes reasons is sometimes the words do change. Oh, we used to call it process improvement at my old company. What are they calling it now? Digital transformation. They just may not be up to date with the latest lingo. And sometimes people, again, just assume it's taken for granted, like Microsoft Office. Do I really have to say that? You know, doesn't everyone know Office? I go, I wouldn't risk it. I'd put it in somewhere just to make sure you come up if they search on it. But the main one is just you're so close to what you do, it's so easy to overlook it. Okay, then the second overarching principle is certain parts of LinkedIn, back to the SEO thing, carry a lot more weight in the algorithm. So of course, there's an algorithm that determines when someone searches who shows up first, who shows up 10th, who shows up, 10,000th. So the places that primarily give extra weight, as you can read here, are the headline section, which is right under your name at the top. There's that little strip of text that's about 20 words long, up to, that you can put. And most people, by default, it just puts your current or last job title and company. It doesn't have any of the keywords that would soak up like 50 times more weight and rank you higher. And I'll show you an example in a second. There's the skills section down near the bottom of LinkedIn that is built for you to put in 100 keywords. So if you just have 20 or 30 or none, you're missing that chance to really get all those. And then the sneakiest one, as I say at the end there, is in the experience section where you put your resume stuff, your job titles. Job titles are the single most heavily weighted thing. So let's say you've got a title. If I went to any of yours right now and it just said founder or entrepreneur, I would say that's kind of a waste because not many people are just going to look up entrepreneur. That could be anything, a flower shop, technology. So say entrepreneur dash, whatever you do, AI and SaaS technology or electric vehicles, or like put words in the title of description that will soak up that 100 times more weight and just rocket you up the charts. Okay, so that's all theoretical. Let me show you this in action. And for the demonstrations I'll be doing, I have a fictitious person on LinkedIn I created called Joe Jobseeker, just as a teaching tool. So any of the stuff I'm telling you, if you ever just went to that link or looked him up, you'll see these things in action. What I'm also going to show you in the next page, this would be incredibly boring to you all to sit here and read all this. So this is, if you need, I'm going to show you these tips, all these tips on Joe Jobseeker's profile, but I do have a slide if you download it later that's got all these tips on it, just so you have some documentation. Okay, well, let's look at the site live here. So if I go in here and I look up good old Joe Jobseeker. Okay, surprisingly, there's 3 people with that name. It used to be just 1, so 2 people. The other thing, and I feel bad about this, I do, is Joe Jobseeker, who's a made-up finance executive, I probably get like a dozen recruiter hits for him a week. Joe, we want to talk to you. We got a job for you. And I'm like, does the name not tell? I think they think he's being cute, or I don't know. But whatever I'm doing on there is working because he gets a lot of recruiter hits. Okay. So again, if I go top to bottom on Joe's profile here, I'm just going to point out some of the things that matter. So a minor thing, but at the very top, everyone has a LinkedIn address, a unique web link. Double check to make sure yours doesn't have a bunch of garbage characters at the end, because when you first join LinkedIn, it randomly generates an address. You can go customize and shorten that. It's just a little more elegant. And a lot of people now put that link on their resume or their, it's a new piece of contact information. So if you haven't customized your address, you should do so. We then have 2 places to make a visual impression and stand out, a photo and a wallpaper behind the photo. I recommend you have both. I shouldn't have to say this, but as a professional site where you only get 1 photo, make sure you have a good photo. And I think I heard through the grapevine there's some headshots being taken here after or something. Yeah, it's not hard to have a good photo. You don't need a professional. A selfie smiling in some natural light by a window works great. But my point is I could show you examples. I mean, so many people I see on here where they look mad or they're standing against a wall, or the funniest are when they cut like their prom picture in half and cut their date out. And I'm just like, that's not suitable for a professional, marketing piece. So you want a good photo, and then the image behind, everyone has the default, that beige thing that like 98% of people. Go find an image on the web that's either a cool abstract design that really pops out, or something that metaphorically relates to what you do or your startup does. So, I mean, there's so many images out on the web you can grab. Give me 1 second here. What's the one I was going to show you? Should have turned I should have her name memorized by now. I turned my bookmarks bar off. That's why it's not popping right up. Yeah, it'd take me too long to find. Anyway, what I was going to show you is, oh, I know one guy I can show you. So some people have graphics that I think really kind of suck you in and look kind of cool, if I get the name right. So here's someone I worked with that does virtual reality stuff who, mocked up that kind of eye-catching thing, put the little VR graphics. I mean, you may like it or not like it, but to me that really stands out and is somewhat relevant to what he does for a living. So you only get 2 graphics. I would make the most of those if you haven't already. Okay, let's back up to Joe Job Seeker. The headline, as I said, critical piece. So under your name, you get about 20 words to put in there. Words in that section get something like 50 times more weight. So what I usually do is start with what is the title or label that describes what you do. So if you have a job, put that. If you're a founder of XYZ company, put that. But generally, I then say /expertise in blah, 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 and I pick what are the 7 to 10 words I want to get the most superpower on if someone's searching for them. So you have to be, selective. You only got so much room, but it's a much longer headline than most people have. But the whole point to me is if you're not found, what's the point? Like, to me, the whole service of this is you got to come up first, and that's mostly about keywords. So I would add some of the words you really want to be found on there. Okay? We've then got it says on mine, because I'm not editing my profile, the blue box, let me show you, as some of you know, is the open to box. So when you're editing your profile, you can say, am I looking for a job? Am I looking to hire people? Am I looking to provide some kind of consulting? So you do have a button you turn on, and they're easy to follow, that you just fill out. What am I offering the world? Or if I'm hiring, what kinds of jobs? So if you haven't filled those out appropriately, that's something that should be set. And most of this stuff, those kind of things are pretty self-explanatory. But then we get to the About section, and the About section is the biggest, most creative part, because the About section is just a huge blank box of 2,600 characters. A lot of people have nothing in there, and LinkedIn takes that section out because you haven't put anything. So there's a lot of schools of thought on this. What I normally do with this is more of a job hunter, but I'd say 1 or 2 paragraphs of what do you do and what's special about you. Now you can write that in the first person, I do this and I do that, or third person, like this person. But I don't think most people want to read big, long paragraphs anymore. I think the attention span's really shrunk. So I usually break it up with bullets in the middle, and I say, what are those keys, qualifications, skills, or if I'm more selling a startup, I would have some bullets about what does my startup offer, or what services. But the point is, I would have some narrative about yourself, and then some of that, and then usually on the end, this again maybe a little more towards job hunters, but I'll put educational credentials, software technology I know how to use. And the other thing, though, that gets overlooked is industry terms that you want to be found on, because there's no native part in LinkedIn to put industries you've worked in. Titles are in there, but not industries. So if you're saying, I'm looking to be found by people doing power generation, power storage, electric vehicles, and smart grid, I would finish by either saying looking for jobs in or actively seeking to build partnerships or chat with people in the EV power. So that last paragraph's often where I work those industry categories in there, because there's really, again, no other place that those go in. Okay? Now, this is a pretty sterile example. Like, this is a good, solid business example. There are people who get a lot more creative, and if you've got that in your nature, go for it. This one poor woman I'm going to pull up because I've used her for years as an example. There's a UX designer that I found years ago on here I think she's in the Bay Area, and other parts of her profile that are not set up the way I would recommend. Oops, why are these people coming up? So when I look hers up, there she is. What I like, though, if she hasn't changed it, is again, much of the rest of this she's not following what I would recommend. But when you go to the About section, just read what she wrote here as a UX designer, if you can see that. Take that in for a second. I am curious about people and why they do the things they do. What's special about watching movies? So I think we'd all agree this is not your standard boring resume AI stuff. This is person really speaking from the heart about what lights her up about her career and her passion. So my example is a little more safe. It's a little more business-like. If you've got really powerful things you want to say and to jazz up the copyright, go for it. However, to her credit, even though she gets much more creative, at the bottom, she still has a whole block as chunky as that is, she's still got all the keywords in there. So it was funny that I was working with a top Microsoft UX person a couple years ago, and I was criticizing his LinkedIn profile, and he thought it was pretty good. But I said, look at this woman. I said, have you done any of this stuff? Have you done think aloud, user tests, low fidelity? And he goes, yeah, I do all that stuff. And I said, but here's someone with half your experience who has all those words, and you have none of those words. So she's going to be found if someone looks for that stuff, and you're not. And then he kind of got it. So even if you do it this way, at least the keywords are in there. Okay? So the About section, yeah, a couple different ways you can go there. Going back to Joe Job Seeker, then there's the education and experience parts, which are, which are really pretty straightforward. Your titles, your companies, I usually put more text, not less, because to me, more text means more findable. And if they don't want to read, 10 lines about your job, they won't open it and expand it. So I see people that just have like 1 or 2 sentences per job. I don't think that's enough. I would go farther. But the main thing I want to show here is look at this person's last 2 titles. You see how his official title was CFO and down here VP of Finance. But look what we added after that. That's where that thing about the words in the titles gets so much power. I asked him, what words you want to be found on? Oh, FP&A, financial planning and analysis. And I said, have you ever had that title? Well, no, it wasn't really a thing most of my career. But he's done it, so we put it in parentheses. The moment we put FP&A in the parentheses, he got 5 times more hits on those kind of jobs. So that's a very unknown tip is, not like whole sentences. There's not room for that. But a couple words, founder dash whatever it is, AI startup, or if you have a job as a consultant, that's worthless unless you describe the domains you consult in. Consultant dash data analytics and business intelligence. But yeah, title words are really, really significant. Okay, education, there's no trick to that, just listing your degrees. There's an optional section you can plug in if you don't know for licenses and certifications. So if you have things like that, there's even an optional section for courses if there's just individual classes you've taken. So really the only thing there is they do give you a box to describe your degrees. So again, in the spirit of keyword matching, I would always take most degrees and say key coursework included, FP&A, financial report. Like I would break out some of the classes you took, the subjects, to just milk more out of that degree and get all those juicy. I mean, maybe you studied stuff you haven't gotten to use on the job. That's a great place to get those keywords in there. So if you haven't done that, it can be useful. Okay, almost done here. Volunteering, things like that, that's all straightforward. The skills section is interesting because for 20 years, LinkedIn gave everyone 50 slots to put in 50 skills. And again, there's no hiding it. It's just keyword matching. That's all you're doing. They doubled that about 9 months ago to 100. So everyone has 100 slots, and I'd encourage you to max it out. Why wouldn't you? Come up, even for brand new grads, I can come up with 100 customer service, interpersonal skills, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, come up with this stuff. But you might as well max that out. And for those who haven't done that in a while, let me show you on mine so you can see it. So I go down to skills, I go to add one. It's going to help you. So all you have to do is either use their suggestions. Sometimes they're on target, sometimes not. But any word you put in here, so even if I said like startup, look at it, the system is going to bring up all of these keywords that relate to that. So I bet many of you would go, oh, I've done startup development, startup environments, early stage. So right there you got 7 or 8 keywords. And then if you put in entrepreneur, you'd have 10 more. And if you put in leadership, you'd have. So again, it may seem really trivial, but that's how people search. That's how recruiters search. That's how companies search. So you might as well make sure you've got the 100 top terms in there. The last thing about that that's not well known is, I don't know if anyone in here is looking for a job. When you apply to a job on LinkedIn, that's the only section it counts, not anything else above. So if you've ever, it'll sometimes say, well, you're only a 23% match for this job, and you're like, well, that's crazy, I'm perfect for this job. What it doesn't tell you is your 23% match in terms of, do you have the words in the skills section that correspond with what the employer put in the ad. So I have a lot of job hunters that are like, I don't get why I'm so badly ranking for this. Oh, you got to get the 100 skills in there. Okay. Last but not least, as far as the things I'm going to touch on, there's recommendations at the bottom. Pretty straightforward. If you have any real life people that will say nice things about you, testimonials about your background, your startup, whatever, this is the modern form of letters of recommendation. And what I love about it is it can't be anonymous, right? It's real people. Companies can check them out. So that's what kind of killed old-fashioned written letters of recommendation, like for those old enough to remember, you know, to whom it may concern, I recommend Matt for whatever. I mean, half the time the people were writing them themselves. There was no way to verify that company said that. Here there is, because you can look up and say, here's this person, here's their background, they said nice things. So you don't have to have those, but I would say on average, you know, if you can get 5, 7, 10 of those, that just adds a nice qualitative piece to all the other stuff we're doing. And it's all built in, you know, who do you want to ask for that? You do have to be connected to them on the site, and you can issue testimonials to others. Make their day, and maybe they'll reciprocate. Okay, so there's some other stuff that goes into profiles, but just in the interest of time, I would say those are the highlights, and I'll say again, don't miss any keywords, get your top ones in those places, and right there, you go from, you know, middle of the pack. Sorry, I forgot to do one demo. I'll finish this piece with this. So if I said, again, product manager, like I did before, and I get the 2.6 million people, and then I say, oh, with that many people, I want someone who does AI, or I get more specific, okay? Unless this backfires, what you'll usually see, look at this, almost everyone on the first page, there'll be some exceptions. You notice their headline all has AI in it. The first person out of 300,000 has AI in their headline. AI UX is in the head. Microsoft AI, that's part of their title, so it's getting weight. So everyone here has AI, but the people on the first, second, third page have it in the places where it gets the extra weight. So it's not the only factor, but it's so obvious when you run as many searches as I do, just the power that has. Okay, does it make sense? All right, so that's the profile piece. We could have a whole topic on this. I don't know if the social part of posting stuff on the homepage, here's some updates on me and my company. In one sense, that's so self-explanatory. If you have something interesting to say you want your friends to know about, post it. If you like and comment on other people's stuff, they might appreciate it. But again, beyond that, it's a pretty straightforward thing, just like Facebook or anything else. And I'm sure CoMotion or others would talk about, you know, what should you post there, how often. Again, we could go off on a rabbit hole there. But just be aware that the other part of being found besides your profile is putting good content out there once in a while. And the homepage makes that real easy. So that one I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. There is, though, per this red note, there is a rumor, maybe it's even more than a rumor, that all else being equal, LinkedIn, if you do engage in the social part on the homepage, liking, posting, they give you a bump in your findability, 10% or something. So there is a reason, even if you're not too into that, to every week I'm going to go in and like some articles, comment on some things. It will give you a better score because you're engaging socially. But what that exact number is, I don't know if they've ever shared. All right, let's move on. How do we find the right people? Networking in this day and age. So LinkedIn is the most incredible networking tool ever built, and yet I still find very few people using the full power of it. So as my slide here says, you know, any type of person you're looking to find, you can probably find them out of 1 billion people on here. As a free user, paid users pay $100 a month, you get a few other bells and whistles, but paid users can search for people by those primary criteria. Keywords in their profile, locations, titles, company names, industries. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you can do for free if you can define, here's the kind of people I want to meet. But what takes it to the next level is what's called Boolean syntax, which I'm sure some of you in here have done, but I'm sure a lot of you have not. Is there anyone who's pretty familiar with Boolean in this room? Okay, programmers, few people, okay. Many of us, most of my clients are not. When I mention this, they have no idea you can do this. And even if you are a programmer or know this stuff, it's a little different on LinkedIn than some other places. So there's sort of its unique. So real quickly, and you'll have this in the slides, is when you want to run a more precise search for what you want to find, a capital and, all letters have to be capitalized in the ands and the ors. That's what tells it its syntax. So those do what you can imagine they do. I want someone with SaaS and AI. So then I got to put the capital and between those keywords. If I will take anyone who does wind power, solar power, or geothermal, capital ORs go between those terms. So pretty basic, but you just got to make sure all the letters are capitalized. Standard internet thing that I hope everyone knows, whenever you search anywhere on the internet for a key phrase that's longer than one word, you got to put quotes around it. If you don't, it'll often take product management and look for the word product and the word management, but not in order, not in sequence. So you get a lot of really random results. So anytime it's a 2-word or longer phrase, just automatically throw a set of quotes around it, and I'm going to show you examples here. A capital not kicks things out, which can be really useful. Oh, I'm looking for architect jobs, but I'm a building architect, not a software architect, and all these stupid software architect jobs. We'll go in and put capital not software or software architect, and that'll get all of those out. You just have to be careful you're not kicking something out that could come up in another context. Like some people will say, oh, I'm looking for a job, and all these healthcare jobs come up, so I'll put not healthcare. But you just got rid of any job that offers healthcare benefits, right? So you got to think, I don't want to work for Microsoft, not Microsoft. Well, every job is going to say, do you know Microsoft, Azure? So just make sure when you use the nots, you're not kicking out a word that could show up in a useful context. The hardest one to explain, although you're probably all better at math than I am, is when you mix ands and ors and nots, you put the ors in parentheses. So you got to trap the ors in a set of parentheses. Again, I'm going to show you an example in just a second. Because otherwise the system gets logically confused. Is it this and this, or this and this, or this? So the dumb answer is just groups of ors that go together, throw some parentheses around them. 2 final notes on this. You can only run searches with up to 5 of those syntax and or not. Any more than that, you'll get 0 results. So LinkedIn has restricted how long the searches can be. And in almost every search I'm going to show you, you start by running a blank search, weirdly enough, I'll show you, and then click the People button and the All Filters menu. So there's this advanced search menu, All Filters, that many people don't notice because you don't see it until you run a search. So I always just run a blank search to just bypass the basic stuff and get to that menu. Okay, so some new information for all of you. Hopefully it's pretty well documented, but let's look at it in action here. So I'll just use some of these examples. So let's say someone is really interested in Microsoft and has been trying to get in there one way or another, and they're not getting very far. One of the most basic things you can do on LinkedIn, okay, and remember what I said, almost every search, I'm going to click a blank search first, so I'm going to put run a search in the search box, click People underneath, because that's what we're looking for, and then I'm going to click the All Filters button on the right, because the moment I do that, it opens up this side menu that gives me many more options. Now, the option I'm looking for with this simple example is I don't want someone who's ever worked at Microsoft. I want someone who works for Microsoft now. So I want to access the current company menu, and it's right there, Microsoft. So I would simply run that. It tells me in my network there are no fewer than 250,000 people that work at Microsoft now. So now I say, well, if there's that many, I'm going to limit it to first and second degree with this menu up here. So I'm only getting warm ones that I can get an introduction through a friend, okay? That still is 10,000 people. So now I might go back into the All Filters menu, go all the way to the bottom with this little box most people don't notice for title. So Microsoft has so many divisions, groups, products. For argument's sake, let's say I want to do something with Xbox. So I say who currently works for Microsoft, that is somebody I know knows them and has Xbox in their title. And like clockwork, it says here's 130 people. So if I'm you and I've got that need, I literally have 130 people. I could ask Jason to introduce me to Shanti. I could ask Matt to introduce me to Ishita. How good? I mean, there's no counterpart to that prior to LinkedIn. I mean, I'd have to call everyone I know, and you know, it would take months. So any specific company you're trying to penetrate for a conversation, that's about as easy a search as you can do. Find the current company, location, maybe throw a title in there. Yeah, question.
Thank you. Question about particularly the second degree connections.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all run into this case where you're like, hey, Jason, can you introduce me to Diane? Like, oh, I actually really don't know Diane that well. I think I met her at a conference and probably can't help you out there. Is there a way that you can sort of select out from that, or is that just sort of
No,
one of the
unfortunately,
faults
that
in the
kind of comes
system
down
right
to
now?
each person's, some people let total strangers in. So you can't control, how well they know them. And so if they just say, I can't grant that favor, I don't think it would go anywhere. Hopefully, maybe you have more than one connection you can go through, so try somebody else. But there will be cases that they just can't do it. I still find, though, in fact, this morning I had someone say, can you introduce me to this company I'm interested in? And he said, it looks like you know so-and-so. And I looked at him and said, I haven't talked to that person since 2009. I've had zero interaction. He probably doesn't remember me. But I still sent a note because I said, what do we have to lose? The one thing I do, though, is I lay it on thick about no obligation. You just don't act entitled. Hey, Thomas, we haven't talked in many, many years. Not sure if you remember me. Absolutely no obligation, but here's what I'm trying to do. I've got this client wants to talk to your friend. I would say I get about a 50% response rate, even if it's something like completely outdated like that. So that's going to just come down to each person, but that's why I recommend you all generally just connect not with strangers, with people you know and have a relationship with. Because that was the whole point of this. If everyone is just a billion strangers, you do that on the street. I mean, the whole point of this is trust. But yeah, some people just can't grant it. Oh, microphone coming. Thank you.
Not a question, but just a thought on the second degree.
Yeah.
Something I do, and this is not fail-proof, is to look at both their profiles, whether they, time-wise, they worked at the same place, or sometimes it's an educational thing, to see if they know more than running into each other. But it's not a fail-proof. Absence of it doesn't mean that they're best buddies. But
you certainly could spend that extra time trying to determine how they might know each other. And my only pushback to that would be, does it really matter, right? Because it's like if you reach out, they'll decide, am I comfortable or not? And maybe there's something we're not seeing. Oh, that's my second cousin, even though I haven't talked to them. And so you could do that, yeah. And but the main point, though, is just how easy that was for free to find. If the first 3 people can't help me, I got 127 more I can bug until I find someone willing to talk to me. And there just is nothing else that can do that. Now, if we take a couple advanced searches, let's say this second, my numbers are off. That should be 2, not 3. So let's say you're just looking to find venture capitalists or private equity. I don't know if anyone's in that situation. That's a remarkably simple search, too. If I start over, I start with my standard blank people all filters search, which I almost always do. Blank people all filters. This one is simple as going down to the industry menu, right? Where there's hundreds of industry codes. They don't have a directory that you can instantly read, unfortunately. But if you just say, is this a common industry, venture capital? Yeah, I think it is. If you don't know this, you can hit add an industry, type in venture capital, and it says, here's VC and PE principles. So I run that search. This is my network. It says there's 571,000 people on here. Okay, well, that's too big. So again, I say, well, who do I know? Do I have any first-degree friend I've forgotten that's in that space? Well, God, there's 16 people. Literally, I probably wouldn't even remember. But then if I hit second, I get all those friends of friends. So 5,400 of those. Let's say if there's that many, I'm going to narrow it to Seattle or something. So I put in a location. And within seconds, I've got 584 VCPE people that somebody I know knows. That's gold. I mean, that's that kind of networking. Again, it doesn't mean everyone's going to talk to you or you don't have to, crack the code or whatever or figure out what to say. But just the finding of the right people is what's so powerful. Okay, now one last thing and we'll move on. Where it gets fancier is, let's say, I don't know where you're at, but let's say you had to hire an IT leader for your company. That third one is about as fancy as these can get. You see the double parentheses and all that stuff. So that's where, when I say, how would I define the IT leader? Well, it would be someone with chief, VP, or director in their title, getting them at a high level, and technology or technical. So a company, that could be 1,000 different titles. VP of Tech and Operations, Chief Technology Officer. But if they have a one-word title like CTO, see, that wouldn't come up with this second part, because the second part says it's got to have one of these words and one of these other words. So this is about as fancy as you can get. And remember what I said, only up to 5 syntax words. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I couldn't add anything else. I could add other searches or run other searches. But just to show you, if I copied, oops, it's not going to let me copy it. But final one I'll run here is if I start from scratch, I do my standard blank people all filters. It just gets you all these menus. So for this one, I go all the way down to title at the bottom, because that's what I'm looking for. I do my CTO, capital or. I do my chief or vice or director. I chain it together with, I think I said technology or technical. And again, it's hard to explain, but I have to then put double parens around these because I've got to keep the second 2 things apart from CTO, if that makes any sense. So what that ends up, well, it looks like what's on the slide. So I run that, and if I'm trying to hire a top technical person, again, bang, 800,000 people, who's a friend of a friend, who's in Seattle, and within a few seconds, I'm lasering right in on the kind of people I want to meet. 1,600. Now, I can even add a keyword. I could say, if there's that many, is there anyone working on Gen AI? And I can use a keyword to pull out just the technical leaders that have something to do with that. Now I'm down to just 1. But as you notice, he's got it in his headline. Good for him. That's why, well, there's only 1. But so if you're into something specific, let's say SaaS, you know, that should be more. 639 come up. So as I look back, being a pretty introverted guy, I don't have to go out and schmooze at parties and all that we had to do in the 90s. I can go here, put some keystrokes, find someone I know and trust, and get them to help introduce me to the right people. And so much business, as you all know, runs on that principle. So I hope there's some new things you saw there that you're not already doing, because I find some brilliant people just haven't gotten to that level of using that syntax to pull out. I could bore you all day. Female entrepreneurs. I've had people look for, what are other things, like innovators and influencers, or almost anything you can name. There's some way you can code it to get those people to come up. Okay. Question?
One thing I've seen used effectively on other sites, which have kind of a specialized search framework, is have you looked at using ChatGPT to describe the kind of search you're looking for and then generate, say, the syntax, or maybe it would point out the options you would pick? Have you looked at that at all?
Yeah, AI can do some pretty good coding like this for a lot of sites, like Indeed.com searches. I haven't done a lot with LinkedIn. I'd be curious how good it is on that. But part of me, and maybe I'm old school, is you know, it's not that hard, and I think if someone learns it, they have more control over what they're doing. So yeah, it's a good point. I haven't asked AI to build LinkedIn searches like that, but this is kind of nested in there. I'll probably do that when I get home today, is I want to see how good is it. I think it's really good for sites that don't have the restrictions like LinkedIn does, where Indeed you can have a 30-word search, but not here. But that's a good point, yeah. Okay, I better finish up here. The final piece, this is a tool, part of LinkedIn, that's hiding in plain sight. I never cease to get excited to show my job hunter clients this. So I have lots of people in town that come to me and they say, oh, no one's hiring. No, there's no jobs in cloud, or, you know, they're down in the dumps. And I kind of look at them funny and I say, well, how many companies do you think are in Seattle? I said, in 50 miles around Seattle, Puget Sound, how many total companies are there? Anyone want to venture a guess? Of all types and sizes, how many do you think there are?
15,000.
15,000. Going once, going twice? 50,000? Okay, it's going up. Price is right. I've had guesses from 300 to 10 million over the years. So 300, I had to tell that person the Columbia Tower in downtown Seattle has more than 300 in that one building. So the correct answer is 340,000. So whether you're doing startup stuff, whether you're looking for a job, I beg people, don't assume you know all the companies out there, right? So someone says there's no jobs in cloud. I go, wow, you talked to all 739 Seattle cloud. How long did that take you? And of course they go, well, no, I talked to Microsoft and Amazon and Google. Oh, you didn't do any homework. You just went after the big ones everyone knows. So I think finding companies in whatever context that means, there's 2 cool ways you can do it. so there's a basic company search on LinkedIn that almost nobody ever notices. I've almost never met someone who's done this. So this link will take you to a page on LinkedIn that's hiding in plain sight. I mean, if you know how to get there, you can find it. But it comes right up and it says, here's all the companies in the world. And then just to back up what I said, if I said Seattle area, Greater Seattle, with no other criteria, it says, boom, it's dropped a little bit, 305,000 companies. Okay? So everyone knows, or most people know how to find jobs on LinkedIn, and people, I find almost nobody using it, and everyone also knows how to research individual companies. But do you know how to build a list of all the energy companies or the VCs or whatever? Now, once this comes up, the menus are very simple. If you need a bigger or smaller company, there's company size menus. So no question, 80% of these companies are tiny, one person in their garage. So if you need bigger than that, just set the filter accordingly. Okay, so that gets us 10 or more employees. We're at 71,000 companies. And just for kicks and giggles, does anyone have a topic, a kind of company you're looking for? What would be a keyword that would relate to something you're looking for? What, therapeutics? Okay. So therapeutics, let's try. So you just put a keyword in. So this isn't searching job descriptions. This is searching company descriptions. What did they say they do? So this pulls out 59 in Seattle. Now these locations there, that's where they're headquartered. So that North Carolina is their HQ, but they have an office in Seattle. That's why they came up. So that gets us 59 decent-sized ones. Now, I don't know your specific case, but what you also might say is, would a therapeutics company always say the word therapeutics in their description? Or is there some other synonym or word? Is there anything else that kind of means the same thing? Yeah, so that's an example where, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, ultrasound. So you might have to try different words. Here's 87 biotech companies, bigger ones. Because again, a biotech company might not say that about themselves. They might say, we work on cancer-fighting drugs. So you'd find them with cancer or oncology or something. But you see how easy that was, and you can do it all around the world. So any type of company you're trying to find more of, there's a basic thing built in that lets you do just that. I usually use keywords, though, and not the industry menu, because the industry menu was invented by crazy people, right? The categories are so weird. For example, if I say, I want to find companies in technology, there's only 4 choices. Well, we all know there's hundreds of technology. And 2 of them are identical. Tech information and internet and tech information and media beats me what the difference is. So sometimes if you're in a very pure industry, like we could try biotech or something, I might use the industry menu or just see what's in there. Like even that, biotech research, well, what about products? What about devices, right? So I normally use keywords instead. And remember what I said about the quotes. If I was looking for medical devices, again, that's 2 words. So I've got to put that 2-word phrase in quotes. And that pulls up 41 companies that literally say the phrase medical devices. Okay, does that make sense? Again, it's right there. It's free. It's just a lot of people overlook it. LinkedIn doesn't promote it much. And then my last tip, and I'll take some questions, there's what I call the advanced search, which you can grab off the slides or whatever here, which is kind of funny that Google can search LinkedIn better than LinkedIn can. It probably won't surprise anyone. So what you can do here is if you're looking for something more obscure, like, what's an example? What would be a phrase that the only companies that would use this phrase, they're in this space. Like it's not something like AI, right? That could have 100,000 different contexts. But if someone said, what's an example? Smart grid AI, that's not an accident. That's a really specific term. So what you do is you take this search and you leave the first part alone and you replace the second parts with what you're looking for. Let me just show you here. So if I jump out to Google, and I start with this little code, as some of you know, will say, look in the LinkedIn companies database. So site, LinkedIn companies, I think is what I want. Sorry, I haven't had to type it manually for a while. I don't need the slashes. Let me take those out. Usually I just click the link. So the first part, that is always there, that little phrase. That tells Google, go dig into the LinkedIn company data. Okay. Then what you do is you put, if it matters, you put a location. It could be as basic as Seattle, or you could use the parentheses Seattle or Bellevue or something like that if you want more than one location. So whichever. Again, or words that go together, parentheses around them. So I'm just doing it as second nature, but that's why I put those. Got to keep that clue, Seattle or Bellevue, contained in parentheses. Okay, but then I put in what is that magic phrase that I want to know anyone saying this in Seattle. Anyone got one of those for me? It's just really specific to what you do or your company? What was that? Can you repeat that one?
Grant budgeting?
Grant budgeting? Okay, that's an interesting one. What fascinates me already is I've never heard of that. I mean, I can guess what it is. I know about grants. I know about budgeting. And what I don't know is, and you would know and I don't, is that a phrase? Like, is that a common piece of jargon? If so, I put in grant budgeting in quotes. Okay, nothing came up. Now, remember, this is a company's description. So even a nonprofit, are they going to say, what our company does for a living is grant budgeting? Probably not. That would be more something that might be in a job description. We're looking for products and services.
Why don't we do therapeutics competitive?
Chiropractic?
No.
Oh. Sorry.
Therapeutics, the same word you did directly in LinkedIn.
I'm sorry. Therapeutics. Okay. We could and we will, but that one smells to me, that could be too broad. That word could mean so many different things. I'll try it. So for this one, you have to really make sure it's a word without a lot of other meanings. And this is probably telling me I spelled my little starting point wrong. We got site, LinkedIn, company, not company. Sorry, like I said, I haven't had to manually code it for a while. So company, not company, goes at the... All right, let's try that. All right. So I wish it gave us a count. I swear sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But right here, Histone Therapeutics, Bonham Therapeutics, Aptivo, Notch, on and on and on and on and on. And at least 10 pages of results. So the question, so what it's doing that's different is they're pulling the data not just from the company's 2-sentence description. This search pulls it from everything they're putting out, postings, articles, job descriptions. So it's much broader, but the question to whomever back there, is it too broad? You need to go back and say X kind of therapeutics or whatever. We'll get those questions in just a second. We have one here.
I was just going to point out, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom.
Yep.
Right there, oh, I'm sorry, that's the zip code. Never mind.
Okay. In the back there? Okay, while we're waiting for that, examples of what I'm talking about would be like AI would be too broad, and machine learning would be too broad, but neural networks, that's a much more specific thing, right? So if that's what I'm looking for, here's all these companies, and sorry, last thing I'll say, here's why this search is so cool. Do we think Microsoft is working in any capacity on neural networks? Probably. I just assume somewhere in that vast company. Would that phrase be in a 2-sentence description of Microsoft? No, they'd say we're a software tech gaming company. So this is where you'll find these tangential companies where they're using this phrase in some aspect of their business, but it's not their core business. So you find this much richer set of companies, but sometimes it's so big and you have to narrow the terms down. Okay, what do we got?
Can you give an example of more of a scope? So maybe company size plus the neural networks? I would love to visually see it.
Okay, you couldn't do that here because there's no way to do company size on the Google search.
Okay.
But I could go back to the basic search.
And then I would have to do all the filters.
Yeah, but I could say like neural networks in the keyword, but then I've got to click. I didn't do this before because I took you right to the page. But if I do a standard search, I then hit companies because that will search companies, not the default, which is people. And then I can put in the size, company size of whatever I'm looking for. But again, hear me out on this. Again, that's only going to find companies who say the phrase neural networks in a 2-sentence description of themselves, which is not most companies. So unfortunately, yeah, if you're looking for size, you'd have to use this. If you're looking for any company talking about that concept, that's when you'd use the Google search. Okay.
I have a suggestion for a term. How about Lisp, L-I-S-P?
Okay, here on the advanced one.
On the Google one.
Google one, okay. So Lisp, go back here. So we take out neural networks. We'll stick with Seattle and Bellevue, not that we have to, but if I say Lisp, okay? So we get, again, I don't know how many, but we've got, just one page, so there's about 6, and speech therapy, I suspect, is not the Lisp you're talking about.
It's ambiguous, but it is precise.
again, that doesn't surprise me because, I mean, you were talking about programming language, right? Yeah. So the odds that a company would say, here's the program, is probably fairly rare, more as opposed to what are they using it for, the product or the service. But anything's worth a try, see what comes up. Okay, I think we're just about there. Did you see any other questions you're wondering about? Okay, so just finishing up, like I said, I think the company finding tool, whether you're looking for a job, strategic partners, whatever, I just find that so overlooked on LinkedIn, whether it's the basic search or the more advanced Google one. And best of all, once you find a company, look and see who works there, and now you got your warm trail in there. So it really is. Okay, so that's everything I had to share today. I will stick around if anyone has final questions, and if anyone's really into LinkedIn, as I learn new things, I just throw them on my blog. So if anyone wants to go see, I've answered lots of questions about LinkedIn over the years on there, if you ever wanted to check it out. But thank you all for coming. Best of luck with your ventures, and thanks again to CoMotion.
Thank you all for joining us today, and a big thank you to Matt. Next Friday at noon, DreamWord Ventures co-founder and managing partner, Evan Poncelet, will talk about the fundraising and building of your startup to scale. Sign up today, and we'll see you next week.